Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. I hope you're having a great day as we continue to celebrate all the amazing people in Mississippi who make this a great place to live, work, and play. Of course, today is Friday, and we're going to be coming to Jeff Duncan here shortly. I just want to bring your attention to something that if you missed yesterday's show and you care about public meetings and open meetings and the conversation we had, it applies significantly to an issue Mississippi is facing today around the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Commission. But the show yesterday was really a reflection on a column I recently wrote about open meetings and how it applies to the commission. But Jim Asher, who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning editor and publisher, he's been on the show several times. He led the Washington Bureau for McClatchy. He was a national editor in the Washington Bureau for Knight Ridder, and he's a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. But anyway, so he joined us, and we talked about the importance of media's role in all public meetings all across the Mississippi. So whether you're talking about a Board of Supervisors meeting or a city council meeting, or economic development effort, whatever it might be. This is a primer. I would refer to it as sort of a master's class on open meetings law. So if you missed that show yesterday, that was on the expanded show, it goes into the Jackson and the Mississippi Delta every Thursday. That's the case. I would really encourage you to go take a listen to it. Hey, incidentally, with some of that in mind, that we as citizens have a role in democracy, to play our part, to make our voices known. And I came across a quote from, let's see, who is it? This is actually musician Nina Simone, who was born back in 1933. That was just one of the quotes that came in this digital history book I get every morning. And she said, "This is the world you have made yourself. Now you have to live in it." So what kind of world do you want to live in? What role do you want to play to create the kind of world that you really want to live in and you want your kids and kids' kids to live in? So open meeting laws are really important. So go listen to yesterday's show on Facebook or YouTube or your favorite podcast if you missed that show yesterday. So now let's shift gears and move over to my friend Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times Picayune. And once again, I'm going to remind you that if you want a sports newsletter to sign up for, you should go to NOLA.com sports and do the Saints newsletter, the Pelican newsletter, and you'll be glad you did. Without any further ado, let me welcome my friend Jeff Duncan back to the show. How you doing, Jeff?
Hey, Ricky, I'm doing good, man. Good to see you. Good to hear from you. And yeah, man, I'm ready for spring. It's it's warming up over here, and it's starting to get that beautiful time of year. Looking forward to some nice weather and getting out on the lake and getting out in the marsh, doing a little fishing.
Yeah, me too. Jordan, my son Jordan, and I took Bishop Kennan, he's the bishop of the Biloxi Diocese, Catholic Diocese. He's a good friend. He lives near us. We took him fishing 2 days ago, and it was cold, man. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But that wind was cold, but we caught some beautiful speckled trout. I mean, some beautiful speckled trout. And the last cast of the day, the bishop caught a beautiful redfish.
Nice.
And just a quick little afternoon over here near our house, and it's a fun time of the year. But yeah, Ann asked me. She said, Ricky. She doesn't call me Ricky. She calls me Bubba. She said, Bubba, I noticed you hadn't been riding your bike lately. I said, have you been outside lately? I don't like riding the bike in cold, man. I went out and did a good long run yesterday, and it was starting to notice spring starting. You see little hints of it. Still a little early. We may still get some cold blasts, but I love riding the bike. I love getting out, walking and running, and I know you do too. But spring's a beautiful time to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice. Kind of warm up. We got through a great Mardi Gras over here. Next big thing on the social calendar is the New Orleans Book Festival coming up next month, and then we'll dive right into Jazz Fest.
Yeah, that book festival, it's not just a book festival. It's a significant book festival, and I know you engage in it, I guess probably in some regard every year, don't you?
Yeah, I try to moderate a panel or sit in on a session. It's really become a big successful event here thanks to the hard work of Walter Isaacson and the Tulane staff. I mean, it falls perfectly on our social calendar between Mardi Gras and Jazz Fest. So it's a good time to kind of sit down, think about some things. We get some really deep thinkers that come in from all over the world. And I highly encourage people. The Mississippi Book Festival in Jackson's also great, but that's in the fall. This is kind of the spring version of that.
You just kind of like zoomed right past the name Walter Isaacson, but to think about him and his contributions, the book he wrote on Steve Jobs, just phenomenal. One of the best books on that subject. I mean, with incredible access he was given. The book he wrote about Elon Musk. To have a treasure like that, basically a living legend on biographies in the city, boy, that's significant, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Walter's Rolodex might be thicker than any Rolodex, in the country. I mean, he ran the Aspen Institute for so long. That's why we're able to attract people like, Malcolm Gladwell and, Michael Lewis is here. I think this year we've got Maggie Haberman and Maureen Dowd. It's just an incredible event. And like 3 days of just nonstop sessions. And on all different subjects. I'll be sitting on a couple sports sessions talking about, the advent of NIL and its impact on college sports. There's just a lot of really interesting facets, something for everybody there. Nature, outdoors, cooking, politics, just about every subject.
Excellent. Listen, I am thrilled with the column that you recently posted at NOLA.com about the Super Bowl, and it's a great reminder of how important the Superdome is to the city of New Orleans. And you gave some historic sort of perspective about the role that Dave Dixon played, and some people may not have heard that name before, and certainly some people may have heard it and you haven't heard the name in a while and forgot who he is. But in my time in New Orleans, when I reflected about the role that Dave Dixon played in basically putting New Orleans on a map that they would not have otherwise been on. In fact, the truth is, if it had not been for Dave Dixon, we may not even have the Saints, and by extension, we wouldn't have the Pelicans. But why don't you remind people who he is and tell them about the event that was going on and who was there and why it's so darn important to the city?
Well, yesterday we had the kickoff Super Bowl 59 kickoff press conference, was basically announcing to the city, hey, this is our year for the Super Bowl. Let's start ramping up. They're starting to attract volunteers and recruit volunteers. But really, it was all the important, influential people in the city and state. Governor Jeff Landry was there. Mayor LaToya Cantrell, Gail Benson from the Saints, and I think the Super Bowl, as I wrote in my column, I think can be a unifying event. It kind of melts away any political differences, demographic differences that we have in the population. Everybody kind of comes together, and it's going to take that here in not only in the city, but in the whole region. It's a regional event, to pull this off. It's such a big event now. Every year it gets bigger, and we haven't had one of these now for over a decade. So I don't think people quite understand. Yeah, this will be the 11th Super Bowl New Orleans had, but not at the level we're going to see it. So it needs more volunteers to work the events. We need more local businesses to participate. The hotel motel industry obviously is a huge part of it. It's an exciting time, but it comes at a time with a new governor who is focusing a lot of his early efforts on the city of New Orleans, trying to, help with public safety and the crime issue that we've had here. It seems like we've had for decades. So there's just a lot of moving parts. And the good news, Ricky, is everyone seems aligned on this. And it's nice to see that. And that's what I referenced back was when we got the Saints into New Orleans back in 1966. Dave Dixon was a local businessman here. And to pull that off, to get the NFL to come to New Orleans, it took a lot of political clout from Governor John McKithen, also Hale Boggs and Russell Long in D.C. to pull off some classic Louisiana political back-end run to help out the NFL. And by doing that, it helped them get the NFL franchise here. So it was everyone working together to not only get a professional football team into New Orleans at the time. It was the 16th franchise in the NFL, but also to get the Superdome built, several years later to be host of that. And look how that's changed New Orleans, bringing major events here. We've had the Republican National Convention here, a papal visit, huge concerts. I mean, it changed New Orleans and really kind of brought this tourism industry to the forefront and really made New Orleans a major league city by having visionaries in the city and down in Baton Rouge that could see the future and what that would bring here.
Yeah, it's amazing what can happen when there's a compelling inspiration, when there's a compelling vision that enables people to sort of get on the same page so that we're all looking at a similar roadmap about how to get there, and you've got leaders engaged around it. That was certainly true when the Superdome was first developed. It will be definitely true as the Super Bowl comes. And I'll explain why I think that's such an important moment for the city, given where the city is today, when we get back on the other side and continue our conversation with Jeff Duncan. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio with my friend Jeff Duncan. And when we were talking before we went to break, Jeff sort of gave you some historic perspective about how important the Superdome is and what had to happen back when the Superdome was built, when Dave Dixon had this wonderful vision, and the role that Russell Long played and Haley Boggs, and at the time Governor John McKithen, and so many others, the business community, everyone rallied together to build the dome. Well, you know what? In a way, Jeff, having the Super Bowl coming back to the city in this moment when you got a new governor, you've got a mayor that has really struggled to some extent in certain areas, especially as it relates to crime. Of course, the governor, as you pointed out, has put some stakes in the dirt around that pretty early in his administration. Really important to see that. But you see the business community, but you see the governor and the mayor and Ms. Benson and other incredibly important leaders in the community coming together around this. That the goal around the Super Bowl and the work around the Super Bowl and what has to happen to prepare for it is a really important moment for the city, not just because we're getting the Super Bowl, because it brings everybody together, and we're now going to be focused on fixing some stuff, getting aligned around how do we put the city in the proper light as it goes out to 150 million plus people around the world. There's something important about this that goes way beyond the Super Bowl, isn't it?
Yeah, there was a lot of talk yesterday when I was mingling, talking to different political and business leaders about what they see when they travel, right? And if you've been to Nashville lately, for example, I mean, Nashville is a boom town. There's cranes in the air all over downtown Nashville. That city is really progressing at a rapid rate. They're building a new $2 billion stadium, right there on the river that's going to, really transform Nashville. They're going to be a main competitor now for Super Bowls, for Final Fours, all those things that we've always had here. There's just more competition than ever for, the major sporting event business. So New Orleans always has been able to kind of rest on its laurels as this big event town because of our world-class nightlife and hospitality. But it takes more than that now to compete. And so everyone has to be aligned, and we've got to continue to move forward as a city and a state. And I think Jeff Landry, the one thing I like that I'm hearing from him is he seems to understand that, like, New Orleans has to be a top priority in Baton Rouge. It can't be this island unto itself down there. It is the most important, economic generator in the state. So he's focusing his efforts, rightfully so, I think, on trying to get some of the problems we've had here fixed, because he knows a healthy, progressive, prospering New Orleans is good for the state of Louisiana.
It's so good to see that, and it's so necessary, and we haven't seen it in the past, and it needs to happen in a big way. Incidentally, as it relates to Nashville, a guy by the name of Butch Spiriton is the leader of the tourism effort during all this change. This is a guy who came there over 20 years ago, and they were afraid to make they were afraid to make Opryland mad. So a lot of their decisions around everything that they did was around leaning toward Opryland. And he said, no, we got to for Opryland to strive forward, we've got to fix the city. And he started to put things in place that led to he's from Pascagoula. Is that something?
Interesting.
It's a small world, but big change usually takes visionary leadership. And it's great to see the city coming together. It's great because we got some big issues in the city that need to be dealt with. And by the way, by extension, the Gulf Coast of Mississippi benefits from all of this in a huge way, doesn't it, Jeff?
Oh, yeah. Look, I mean, I was talking to people yesterday. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people flying into Biloxi Gulfport Airport. There'll be people staying over there and shuttling over. This is a regional event. It's so big, it dwarfs even the city of New Orleans. So, just the private, charter flight business is so big. Even we have 2 private airfields here in New Orleans, which is more than, amazingly, Las Vegas only has 1. But we've got so many here and so many flights will be coming in. They're going to have to use airfields all the way over to Biloxi Gulfport to handle the traffic flow that comes in that weekend.
Incredible, man. Incredible. Hey, listen, I want to talk about the Pelicans, but any news on the Saints?
Well, they did announce finally their offensive staff. It's stuff we've all reported. It's just officially now the lines have been done. Look, next week, Indianapolis, the Combine, there's going to be a lot of stuff happening next week. Once they get up there, there's 2 different things that happen at the Combine. One is obviously the testing for the NFL draft prospects. 332 of them will be there, interviewing with teams. That speaks for itself. That's what everybody watches on television. But really more interesting and more, I think, important is all of the meetings that take place up there because the entire NFL community is there. All the general managers, the scouts, the coaches, and all the agents as everybody gets ready for the start of free agency, the start of the new league year in a few weeks. So you'll start to see, Ricky, a clear direction of where the Saints are going to go with their roster. We're going to start to hear news leak out in the national press, as it's wont to do with the reporters, that who they're going to try and re-sign and restructure, who they might be moving on from is in terms of cutting them for cap casualties, who might be a trade prospect. All this will all start coming out next week as these meetings take place in a corner of a hotel room somewhere. There's just a lot of cloak and dagger that goes on in Indianapolis. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. Right now, it's kind of a calm before the storm.
Hey, listen, the Pelicans are on a bit of a roll. A headline from NOLA.com is Willie Green's team goal is to avoid the play-in tournament this year. But they're starting to put it together, aren't they?
Yeah. Okay. We're back from the All-Star break. 27 games to go. The best record they've had at this All-Star break since 2009 and 10. And most of the games the rest of the way, Ricky, are at home. So if they can get that home court advantage in the Smoothie King Center, stay healthy, and really, I think, start to see, Zion Williamson continue to take the next step of kind of this team becoming his team. And, they're really working the offense through Zion Williamson as that kind of point guard, if you will. And it's been very effective so far. I think the key for the Pelicans, staying healthy and then obviously staying consistent. And they've been more consistent lately. In the past, they've had a tendency to play up or down to the level of their competition. And we've seen a little maturity now where they're able to really, take care of the teams they should take care of and then also beat some of the elite teams in the league. So it's an exciting time right now for the Pelicans.
Well, point guard, if you will, because, a lot of people might think of him being a player that you're just going to feed the ball to and let him go do whatever. But what they do, and certainly he's doing that for sure, but there's a lot of taking advantage of the strengths of other players on this team. It is a true team effort where everyone's beginning to understand what their roles are. And there's some great young talent on this team, isn't there, Jeff?
Yeah, look, he draws everyone's attention, right? When he has the ball, he's so, physically gifted at getting to the basket, explosive, that the defense has to account for him, and that leaves all kinds of openings on the wings for guys like Trey Murphy, C.J. McCollum. The stats go up across the board when Zion Williamson is attacking the basket. Now, what will be interesting to see, Ricky, when this team makes the playoffs, and I assume they will, is can it hold up then? We've seen this also, very similar type players, Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee. Only he's about 6'11". He's much taller, but he attacks the basket the same way, very unstoppable player. But in the playoffs, we've seen teams form walls in the lane. You can't get to the basket, and it's been very effective. We'll see if teams do that to Zion and how the Pelicans adjust when that comes down the pike, because it's going to come once they get in postseason.
Hey, listen, one thing about the All-Star break, and I watched some of the individual competitions and whatever. Wow, there's some incredible talent in the NBA right now, isn't there?
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, and look, it's only getting more athletic. Trying to stop offensively these gifted players, how they can shoot now, the skill that they have. It's really become a forward guard league, multi-position league. There's very few big men anymore. Nikola Jokic is kind of the anomaly out there. For the most part, this is a positionless basketball that's taken over the league. Look at the LA Clippers, a good example. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, they're all kind of the same size, same style player, and they're all, playing together. Everybody thought, how are they going to work it out with one basketball? And it's been very effective. So to me, this is going to be exciting Western Conference playoffs. I think the Pelicans, if they can get some home court advantage, it'll be off the hook in the Smoothie King Center.
It's going to be so interesting to watch, man. It is. We've said all along, if we could get Zion mature, man, there's been so many twists and turns in his career. A lot of it focused on he was so young and immature, had too many people in his life trying to control him and tell him what to do, and then you had the injuries on top of that, and I remember at one point when he was injured, he was enjoying playing a lot of video games and getting it, just not really taking care of his body, but he seems like a different young man now. So it's going to be so interesting to watch this second piece of the last piece of the season. Jeff, Duncan, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you, my friend.
All right, Ricky, have a great weekend. Talk to you next week, bud.
Okay, buddy. Take care.